Let's go, Buffalo! Bet you didn't know that in 1896, the power lighting up the city of Buffalo traveled roughly 26 miles through the dark from Niagara Falls, riding on patents that belonged to one of the strangest geniuses who ever lived. And the man who dreamed the whole thing up first pictured it as a boy reading a book by firelight, half a world away. This happened right here on the Niagara frontier, 30 miles from downtown Buffalo, and it's one of the most important nights in the history of electricity anywhere on Earth. Years before any of this, a boy in Serbia read a description of Niagara Falls, not a photograph, a written description by his own account later in life, and pictured, in his imagination, a big wheel run by the falls. He told his uncle he would go to America and carry out this scheme. That boy was Nikola Tesla. By 1888, all grown up, he had something the whole world needed: patents for alternating current, which he sold to a Pittsburgh industrialist named George Westinghouse, reportedly for cash and stock plus a royalty on every horsepower the system ever produced. Tesla's boyhood dream and Westinghouse's money were now pointed at the very same waterfall. To understand why this mattered, you have to understand the fight that came before it. Through the late 1880s, the country had been in the middle of what's now called the War of Currents, a bitter public battle over whether the future ran on direct current or alternating current, complete with public stunts designed purely to scare people away from AC. It was ugly and very public. But by the time Niagara's real contract got signed in 1893, that particular battle had already cooled. The company actually deciding Niagara's fate wasn't one famous inventor going head-to-head with another. It was an international commission working from cold engineering numbers. In 1890, that commission, headed by the physicist Lord Kelvin, set out to solve a problem nobody had cracked. How do you carry Niagara's power any real distance at all? 17 proposals arrived from 6 different countries over the next year, and plenty of engineers on both sides of the ocean still doubted alternating current could travel that far and stay usable. Kelvin's commission rejected every single one of the 17. Then, instead of picking a winner from the pile, they went straight to Westinghouse and asked him to build it his own way, on Tesla's alternating current, not the direct current everyone else had been betting on. The company actually building it was called the Cataract Construction Company, formed around 1890 and run by a financier named Edward Dean Adams, which is why the plant would carry his name. In 1893, Westinghouse won the construction contract by underbidding General Electric by $601,000. His engineers built the generators on the work of Tesla and a fellow engineer named Benjamin Lamb. This wasn't a duel with Thomas Edison personally. By then, Edison had already stepped back from the merged General Electric. The real fight here was corporate, line item, and Westinghouse won it on price and on Tesla's patents. By late August of 1895, the Adams Power Station was alive. It was the first large-scale alternating current electric generating plant in the world, full stop, no asterisk. But a machine that only lights up its own building next to Niagara Falls isn't the whole story yet.
The real question still hung in the air. Could that power actually travel? Could it reach a real city 20-some miles away and run something an entire community depended on every single day? Building the answer to that question meant stringing a transmission line somewhere around 26 miles long. Contemporary press accounts from the week it happened put it at 26 to 27 miles, a genuinely enormous distance for alternating current in 1896. Down in Buffalo, the Buffalo Railway Company had already signed a contract locking in at least 1,000 horsepower of that power, delivered by November 15th. Nobody was fully sure the line would hold up until the night they actually threw the switch. The answer came on the night of November 15th, sliding into November 16th, 1896. At 12:01 in the morning, 1 minute after midnight, A switch closed 26 miles away. Rotary converters spun up, machines whose entire job was turning that incoming alternating current into the direct current the streetcar motors actually needed, and Niagara's power reached Buffalo. Two different newspapers covering it that very week, on opposite ends of the story, agreed down to the minute. And the very first thing that power touched wasn't a streetlight at all. It was Buffalo's streetcars, the entire Buffalo Railway Company fleet, running on electricity born at a waterfall 26 miles away. Picture that Monday morning commute. Nobody boarding those streetcars had any idea the electricity under their feet had traveled further and through more engineering argument than almost anything humanity had ever attempted with alternating current up to that point. It just worked, quietly, which might be the most Buffalo way imaginable for history to happen. Now, you'll hear people call this the moment Buffalo became the world's first electrified city. That's not true, and honestly, the real story doesn't need the exaggeration to be remarkable. Cleveland had arc lights downtown in 1879. A courthouse in Wabash, Indiana lit up in 1880. Even Edison's own Pearl Street station in New York City beat Buffalo to commercial electric power by 14 years. What Niagara and Buffalo actually pulled off was rarer than first. The first large-scale, long-distance transmission of alternating current hydroelectric power, built specifically for commercial use, delivered to a major American city. Nobody else had put those four pieces together in one place, at that scale, at that distance. That's the real record, and it's still extraordinary on its own terms. That July, before the switch was even thrown, Tesla came to see it in person. On July 19, 1896, he toured the finished plant with Westinghouse and with Edward Dean Adams, the very man the station was named for. The machine running in front of him had been built on his own patents, powered by the same falls he had dreamed about as a boy back in Serbia, reading by firelight, imagining a wheel that could turn the whole world.
Then, on January 12, 1897, Tesla did something rarer than any invention. He stood up in Buffalo in person at a banquet at the Ellicott Club and spoke to the room himself. By his own admission, he said he had scarcely had the courage to address an audience. But he told them the Niagara project was, in his words, not only a bold engineering and commercial feat, but far more, a giant stride in the right direction. The boy who once imagined the wheel was standing, in the flesh, in the very city his wheel had just switched on. 5 years later, that same Niagara Power did something even bigger. In 1901, the Pan American Exposition lit its 400-foot electric tower and its entire grand court using power carried on that very same transmission line. Roughly 200,000 bulbs across the fairgrounds, with somewhere around 40,000 of them on the tower alone. Over the run of the fair, more than 8 million people walked through the gates to see it. Short of what organizers had hoped for, but still one of the largest gatherings most of them had ever witnessed. That's where Buffalo actually earned the nickname the City of Light, not in 1896, but in 1901, at that fair, 5 years after the switch first closed at 1 minute past midnight. So what's actually left of it today? The Adams Power Plant Transformer House still stands on Buffalo Avenue in Niagara Falls, designed by the same architecture firm that shaped so much of Beaux Arts America, and it's the only surviving structure from the original plant. It's a National Historic Landmark listed on the National Register of Historic Places and formally recognized as an international engineering milestone. In 1967, New York's own governor came out personally to dedicate a plaque there, reading simply, "Birth of Hydroelectric Power." The powerhouses themselves came down in the early to mid-1960s. The transformer house is the one piece that survived every wave of demolition. 20 minutes away in North Tonawanda, another piece of that same transmission line survives too, a preserved transformer building from 1895, now cared for with a small park and historical signage of its own. Two buildings, one forgotten system,
both still standing today if you know exactly where to look for them. That boy who read about a waterfall and imagined a wheel big enough to run the whole world, he was right, more than he probably ever knew. It just took a Pittsburgh industrialist, a rejected international commission, and roughly 26 miles of wire strung across the Niagara frontier to prove it. And a piece of it is still standing quietly today, if you ever drive past Buffalo Avenue and know what you're looking at. Did we get it right? Heard it told differently? Know a story we should tell next? The comments are yours. Then like and subscribe, there's plenty more where this came from. And now you know. Let's go Buffalo!